because I grew up watching this guy's films. I loved everything this guy's done. And he's hilarious, by the way. So, and he seems to be having a really, really good time, which makes me feel good because I think I'm actually doing something right for a change. I'm gonna warn you guys, Ralph is not, he doesn't candy coat it at all. So if this is like, if there are families in the audience and you're worried about your kids hearing a few bad words, I'm warning you now. Okay? So you can't say later on the forums, I can't believe that Ralph Bakshi said this in the Q&A. But that's why we love him. So, and I'm going to bring up my buddy Robert Wolanski with the Dallas Morning News to moderate this one, because he knows a lot about Ralph Bakshi. So I wish I could be here to do this myself, but guys, are we ready back there? I'm waiting for a signal. They're probably just talking at this point. They're probably just back there talking and swapping stories. I'm going to actually, I'm just going to take the microphone back there and see what happens. Are you guys... Oh, they're there. Okay, they're coming. For some reason, they walked back down the hallway as if they were going back down to the dealer's room. I don't know why that happened, so. How many of you seen Fritz the Cat? Yeah. How many of you seen Coonskin? Yeah. How many of you seen Heavy Traffic? Yeah. How many of you seen Hey Good Looking? That's one of my favorites, Hey Good Looking. Cool World? Mighty Mouse?
Deputy Dog.
Why waste any more time? Ladies and gentlemen, Ralph Bakshi.
Hi, hello. Hi. Ralph, we got some waters right here too. Water? Water right here. That's a ton of water. That's a ton of water. Wherever you like. You sit there. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I know you've already given him a big hand, but I mean, I know for many of us, I can probably say that I speak for many of us when I say, without you, I'm not sure I would have seen breasts until I was much older. They may not have been real, but they were real enough. And without you, I'm not sure I would have heard my first grown-up language until I was much older, so thanks again for that. I have a 9-year-old who is here, and I can't wait to show him Fritz the Cat. Actually, I can't wait for Ralph to show him Fritz the Cat. He's offered. I may take him up on that offer. But before we get into the past, I want to discuss the present, if you do not mind. Just yesterday on the YouTube page for Trickle Dickle Down, which is a 2-minute short imagining a very post-Mitt Romney apocalyptic future, you talked about in the comments about how you were going to go to Kickstarter to try to help you raise the funds for what the reimagined, the reworked upon version of The Last Days of Coney Island. Yeah! It's something we've all been waiting on. So I wanted to ask you, how is that coming? When will that Kickstarter campaign begin, and where is that project once it goes forward?
The Kickstarter attempt, and that's all it is. You know, you have this feeling that you would go on there and no one's going to give you anything.
These people will all give you a lot.
We did Trickle Dickle Down as an experiment, and which was previous animation and how I felt about Romney, which is personal. I'm not telling anyone else to feel that way, but it was a personal. And it went further than I thought. I just did it for the internet. So I thought that this is a fantastic thing to do films just for the internet. You know, money's not the issue. Completing the film would be the issue. You know, certainly you're not going to make the kind of profits you make in Hollywood theaters, but it's not what I want anymore. It's want to be able to continue to animate. So I decided to redesign and do Last Days of Coney Island, which is very similar to Heavy Traffic another way, with amazing characters, and to do the first sequence on Trickstarter, try to get some money to do it. And once that's done, probably that would be enough for me to get financing to finish it, because I've had something to show, and I have hopes it's going to be good enough. and to release it directly on the internet. In other words, whether it's Kickstarter, whether it's Netflix, whether it's YouTube, just put the picture up. So I'm excited about that. You know, the opportunities on the internet, I think, enormous to do your own thing. And I think, or to do what's right for animation, which is more important than your own thing. So, yes, I'm going to attempt it. I would say the next 5 or 6 weeks will be up. And we'll see what happens. But basically, I'm doing it I'm doing it to get it done. Now, as far as the Wizards go, Wizards 2, I'm not sure what this was about, but the guy, Mike Richardson, who owns Dark Horse Comics, called me about 3 weeks ago and said he's crazy over Wizards, and he wants to make Wizards 2, and blah, 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 blah. And he went on and on. And I said, fine, go right ahead. Now he's getting back to me on an email today. He's in the New York Comic Convention that he has written an outline for me to okay on Wizards 2. And I told him that I really want to like it, but if I don't like it, we're not going to do it, I said. So I don't know what he's talking about yet, but we'll see. So
he hasn't given you a general idea, an outline of what, maybe it's just, hey, I want to make it, and I'll pay for it, and I'll write it.
He didn't say pay for it. And some of the bitches,
He can afford it.
I don't know if he could, maybe he could. I don't know how big Dark Horse is, but he said he's going to read it to me next week or send it to me. He's written it. I didn't know he was a writer, but I guess he is. Or maybe he's not. Let me read it. But certainly, I said, well, listen, why don't you just make a graphic novel and start there? I would think that on too. So we'll see. This is all happening. This is all happening lately. We'll see what happens. I've been disappointed before. Wizards 2 would certainly take place on the internet. I don't mean the screening. I'm talking about the storyline. I would want it to be where it would be today.
Well, you know what we're talking before, we were saying, like say, you have some definite ideas for what you would have liked or would like Wizards 2 to be about.
Well, I told Mike I've written three treatments. He didn't want to see them. So, no, these guys, you see, what's important in Hollywood is that everyone does something that they want to do, not what you want to do. It's always the same fight. In other words, they'll do it if they write it, but they won't do it if they don't write it. I don't care if he writes it if it's good. So, he didn't care what I had. He didn't care what I had.
Which I find very bizarre.
Yes.
Oh, well, no, that's the way it is. That's the way it is.
Yeah, but even at this late date, you can understand it in the late 60s, early 70s, even up until the mid-90s. Certainly you had fight after fight after fight with studio after studio after executive after executive.
Right.
They didn't understand it, they were scared of it, they wanted to retool it, whether it be Cool World, whether it be Wizards, whether it be everything you touched, they did not know what to make of it. But it would seem at this late date, given that you have decided to retreat, to retire, not retire because you still paint on a mountaintop in New Mexico. You don't need this shit, in other words. So, like I say, I have my 9-year-old, I don't know if anybody else has a 9-year-old.
That's
I hear you. But I would like to ask you, why at this point would you even bother getting involved with the fights that you have left behind?
Wow. I'm smarter about the fight side. There will be no fight at this point. In other words, I'm not going to do Wizards unless it's exactly as I see it. I'm not going to do Wizards unless it's great. If the guy writes a brilliant script, I'm not going to argue about it because I respect writing. I like writing. The fact that I didn't write it isn't as important to me as what it says. If it says something that's important for animation to say, then it's very important to have it done. But I'm not going to fight over it anymore. I mean, that part of my life is over. I'm not going to make a contract. It doesn't work for me. But let me be very clear. When I sold my films in the 70s, I wasn't exactly clear with the guys that bought it or what I was making. I mean, they in their deepest minds could not believe what they saw. Or as they kind of thought it was going to be very funny and humorous, and when they saw it, they fell out of the chair. Now, I happen not to tell them exactly what I was writing, because I didn't know what I was writing, but I started to write it. So always at a meeting, I sounded very funny. You know, I alluded to Disney, Warner Brothers, and would it be funny if this guy said a curse word in the middle of his cartoon? He didn't know the whole family was going to curse on the screen, so I don't know. So I wasn't exactly fair with them. I took advantage of a situation where they didn't care about animation, and they didn't care what I was doing, as long as just a cartoon, and I knew they didn't have any idea what I was doing. The reaction when they saw it was very severe. But at that point, I didn't care. I had made my film, and that was all I was after. I wasn't after a box office. I was after what I wanted to make, because that was more important to me. Because also I was, you know, grew up very poor, but we didn't feel poor. So having money wasn't that big a deal to me, but not having money it wasn't in my vocabulary. So I just wanted to make these films because I hated Disney.
And yet many of the people you worked with had come from Disney. Many of the people that you worked with and knew were friends were also at Warner Brothers. They were frustrated. They felt the same way you did about how animation had been limited in its thinking. Do you recall the moment at which you knew that yours was going to be a career marked by fights with executives who did not understand what you were trying to do? Because at that point, I'm not sure you knew what you were doing until you sat down and got it out of it.
Well, you're right. First of all, the guys from Disney and Warner Brothers are out of jobs. You know, animation today is enormous business. In fact, the highest Hollywood grosses are animation features. When I was in animation, it was dying. I mean, dying. Short studios were closing. The only people that made feature films was Disney, and all the studios said the only guy that knows how to make them up is Walt Disney. So all the guys, the Warner Brothers guys and the MGM guys that I used were all out of jobs. You know, so basically, it was an amazing time to pick up the best people in the world. They were shocked at what I was doing. They'd walk into my office and they would say, "Ralph, do you really want me to do this?" I said, "Yes, I really want you to do this." They'd smile. "You sure?" "Yeah," they ran out to do it. They loved it. Now, there were some guys that didn't love it. They quit. There were some women that walked out. When I first came to Hollywood, there was a huge ad in Variety, full page, signed by the who's who of Disney Animated. It said I should go back home to Brooklyn, that they don't need my kind of garbage around in print, that Disney spent his life making the industry what it was. Who am I to come in with my pornography? That was pretty hard to take, because after all, I was just an animator, and some of the guys on that list were guys that I thought were great animators. You know.
Did you almost turn around when you saw that? I mean, it must have been terrifying. It must have been invigorating at the same time to have seen that you could scare these people to the point where they wanted you to go because they, I think, saw you as the future.
No, I wasn't that sophisticated at the time. I got me very depressed. It was, after all, I'm an animator, and I wanted animators. Animators want animators to like it. You know, we don't want to be I don't want to be the enemy. I just want to do what I want to do. My position was, I just want to do what I want to do. I'm not your enemy. Don't go see my movie. Plus, the rating system had just come out in those days, and I was protected by my ratings. You know, the rating system was brand new. That's like an R, I got an X, it says not for kids. You know, so what's the big deal? There were live action movies being made, far more severe than the movies I was making. So why is Martin Scorsese shooting everybody he wants to the death? And, you know, Pacino and all these guys, and I can't do the same thing. I don't understand it. That's because Disney basically had so subjugated the industry to saying animation is only for kids. That's what he sold. It's only for merchandising. That's what he sold. And it's only if you're good. That's what he sold. And he did all these good films, but World War II was going on, and people were dying and being slaughtered. You know, and feature films weren't about that at all, which I find extraordinary. Did a couple of propaganda films, but his feature films had discussed the concentration camps, let's say. He would have done a lot of good, but maybe somebody economists would have bombed some of the crematoriums that weren't bombed. They flew over that, so I have lots of anger. But basically, that's who I am. You got to look at the world and say, okay, this is my medium, and what do I do to be proud of my medium, not what do I do to sell it. I'll sell some cells downstairs. That's great. But, so I think animation should be used to tell the truth. After all, animation was political cartooning. It's a great history of cartooning, which is political. Goya is a great inspiration to me. You know, look him up if you don't know his drawings on the Inquisition. It's amazing. So these are the guys I love, you know.
When did you know that animation for you was going to do what it had never done for anybody else, which is that it allowed a venue to tell personal stories?
Well, they're very clear. I believe you say that. I'm 74 this month, okay?
October 29th is your birthday. Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. When I left animation in the 80s, I was burnt out. I was exhausted. There were fights. There were lawsuits. A big drain on the family. We weren't that wealthy at all. When I left animation, I thought I had failed. I want to be very clear. I thought it was over. I thought I was finished. I thought I'd handled myself stupidly. Sometimes I said, well, you know, Ralph, you could have had a bigger studio than Disney. You could just play the game. You know, I had my doubts about how I handled myself. Only in as much as sometimes you just think you're stupid. You have a family to support. I've got 4 kids. You know, you want to take care of your family. You know, but in the end, and I left broke, tired. Used to drink a bottle of vodka every day in the office when things got rough. So I was pretty beat up. And slowly over the years, people kept watching the movies, which shocked me. When I left, I thought I had totally failed. Everyone was screaming at me, calling me pornography. You know, it was very difficult. They were taking my very positive black films and saying there was something else. And suddenly, everyone's watching Kunsky, everyone's watching Traffic. And over the years, the kids, the people who were watching the films are as young as the time they made the films, 18, 17, 20, plus my older fans. And now I'm sitting here, and he said, when did I know it was a success? 3 years ago, I knew that it was a success. Before that, I was pretty sure I had failed. But they're alive. That my pictures are still playing everywhere. And I'm thinking now that Disney made films for $23 million in the 60s and 70s, and $32 million a film. Mine cost $1 million. And those films no one's watching or talking about. They're still talking about Traffic. So it's only a few years ago that I realized that I had succeeded, thanks to you guys. Finding my film, I guess the internet helped a lot. Everything's playing on YouTube. So I am not coming back with his attitude that you can't, now I'm going to get what I want. I doubt it. You know, you can't beat Hollywood. You can just fight them and hope you can sneak some stuff through. I'm going to try to make films for the internet, but I didn't think I left succeeding at all. I just felt I left doing the films that I wanted. But everyone was telling me I was stupid because I could have made a fortune if I just did family films.
Yes, but that's my point. My point is that you make these personal movies, which are, and the reason they do live on, the reason they do succeed is A, because they're beautiful, they're inventive, they're extraordinary to look at, but they're also visceral in as much as that they are so personal. And you were doing at a time when no one was making animation that was autobiographical, that was political, that was, in a weird way, despite the fact that it may have been so extraordinary to look at, it was also in some ways social realism. And no one was doing that. At what point did you realize that animation was going to allow you that?
Well, each time, what's interesting is we all get nostalgia for different time periods, but unless you're living in the time period, you can't fully understand how you got to where you got. It doesn't seem that obvious. So it seems obvious, like, when did I know? I didn't know so much, but my generation was different than the generation today. I grew up when jazz was, first I grew up when rock and roll was breaking, starting. I grew up before television. So when television hit, that was a huge reaction in my mind. Baseball games on television for free, oh my God, okay. Rock and roll broke, Elvis Presley and stuff. And how original was that? Black guys could see that when they're even allowed to show up in the streets, that was amazing, okay? The Jackson Pollock was paintings, you know, and Miles Davis and all these great jazz groups in the 60s were playing music, not for money, All these guys were doing what they wanted to do because they loved it, and they were artists. They'll walk has Bobby Dylan singing Blowing in the Wind, and his music, which wasn't music, right? And then Jimi Hendrix. I grew up at a time when people weren't that interested in music and money, they were interested in ideas. So doing what I did was part of my upbringing as an artist. There wasn't anything I discovered. There wasn't anything that came to me when they were a light bulb, you know. It had to do with what I believed in, that I was living through, you see, and that's what no one understands. I'm a product of that time. Today I'd be a stockbroker, you know, so, you know, I'd rob a bank, or I'd work for a bank and rob everybody around, you know. I mean, what is happening today is the opposite of that. You got the real estate problems, people robbing Americans, sending the junk overseas. We borrow from China like we don't, like they own us now. The banks, the people, the government, it's all 2 wars that we lost. Trillions of dollars spent and no one's admitting why. So it's a whole different thing today. And everyone's texting and everyone's a genius and everyone's on the email and everyone's saying how great they are. That's something I don't quite understand. You need time by yourself sometimes. I'm old school. I told the girl on the plane, I'm talking right to your face. She felt unbad. I wasn't texting, I was just talking to her. So I don't know what to say. I'm a product of that belief that I held. And of course my background in Brooklyn, which was totally free. No one told me what to do. You ran in the streets all night and all day. There weren't no regulations in Brooklyn. So there was a sense of freedom I had as a young man. My parents were immigrants, they hardly spoke English, so they never told me what to do. So I'm saying it was all these factors that entered into when I sat down to animate. You animate what you want, because this is what you do. You don't do what somebody else wants. You know, and I certainly never considered what audiences might like. All movies today, most movies are lies. What I mean by lies are a bunch of guys get in the meeting and say, what could we do to make people like this? It doesn't mean what could we do to make it real, or what could we do to make it important? Or what could we do to make people like this? And all movie meetings and script meetings are lies. The stuff they're talking about, they don't really believe in. They're just sort of manipulation of ideas. So all movies are made up of how do we entertain you people out there. And which is okay. But I make movies about how do I entertain myself. How do I say something to myself? And not that I'm that egotistical, it's just that I don't know how else to do it. Whenever I made a film about what you might like, it fell on its face. And I've done films about what you might like, they're terrible. You know, worked at Terrington doing films that kids would like. They hate them. You know, so I'm saying, doing what you, I'm not good at like lying to you. So if I'm not lying, I can make a decent film, obviously. But if I'm lying, it doesn't work, because my lies aren't good enough. You know, most movies are lies, I think. In that structure how they're made.
See, what's always weird to me about you, especially, is that it all links together. I was watching the other day one of the Mighty Mouse episodes of the Mighty Heroes, and I was reminded of just how much Mighty Mouse was talked about Terrington, how much all of your stuff was all of a piece, no matter who you were doing it for, no matter when you were doing it. You talk about how you make films to entertain yourself, not necessarily the audience. We're just lucky that they entertained us. But at what point did it become, it had to be a conscious decision? You said you made films that, for us, that were not successful. I think we all know which films they are. So at what point did you say enough's enough? At what point because when you came back with Mighty Mouse, it was in some ways your history contained within this character that you may not have liked 40, 50 years earlier.
Mighty Mouse was, I had a lot of help from John Chris Belushi. I don't want to sit here taking all the credit for Mighty Mouse.
You could take most of it.
I can take a
Please.
John, had a lot of help from Mighty Mouse from John Chris Belushi. I certainly understood what he was doing. What was the question?
No, it was a long time ago, the question. But when you came back, you realized that you had this chance to sort of offer again your history.
In Mighty Mouse?
Yeah, you went back in some ways.
Oh, no, 99 was a sellout for me. It was okay, but
But it's a sellout, you said it's a sellout.
yeah.
But it's a sellout that at the same time allowed you to do something very personal, because it was recounting your history, it brought back some of your characters.
Wrong, you're wrong on that. You're right on everything else, you're wrong. I didn't mind Mighty Mouse.
Okay, that's fair enough.
It was John's Mighty Mouse, wasn't I? Wasn't that man? Now, what I got angry about was when Homer Simpson took my character, Angie, from Heavy Traffic. That guy, you ought to look at Homer Simpson, look at Angie. They're the same character, same drawing. So that got me a little mad. What's his name? When I called him on, he said I was doing a homage to me. Every time someone wants to rob something, they say it's a homage. That's the biggest word in Hollywood. The minute they say homage, you know, oh my God, they're going to take this guy apart. I made my films because of my heroes. And my heroes were Miles Davis, you know, Jackson Pollock, Bobby Dylan, you know, Jackie Robinson, Brooklyn Dodgers. I had heroes. The guys that came home from World War II, they were great guys. They fought, they saved the country. So I had heroes I made my films for. Very important people to me. I don't know who today would be that sort of person. But the guys I love, the guys that stood up and did their own thing, not necessarily for anything except trying to get as good as they could. So that's what's about different generations. You know, I had my heroes that were bigger than life, including Superman when I was a kid, in comic books. You know, so.
I see
It's a different time, guys. It was a different time.
There's a microphone set up. I know folks probably have a lot of questions.
Yeah, why don't you ask me some questions?
I know Ralph, we were talking about, he'd love to have your questions. If you would like to just stand up and ask them, please shout them out as well. Yes, sir.
How do you feel about Japanese hentai animation?
Japanese what?
Hentai.
What's hentai?
Hentai is the more extreme pornography type Japanese animation.
I don't think you would like it very much.
I never saw it. I'm not great on pornography. I really show you something. I'm not sexy in my films. You can't call me sensual. So I don't think animation is good at that sort of thing. If you want to do personal animation, that's one thing, but if you're going to be sexual, do it personally, you know. So you don't need animation to do that right. So one of the things, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't see it, but do you like it?
It's just a.
What do you think it says about you?
It's an extreme part of animation. It's got its own little pocket.
No, I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Maybe I should.
But
Google it.
What?
Google it.
No thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, don't Google it, whatever you do.
I'm 74, I'm not going there.
But it's funny, you said earlier people say you were pornographic, you could ask about Japanese hentai films just now. I've always believed that your work has been misunderstood, isn't that it? That it's, oh, it had breasts, it had language, it had blood, therefore it must be, he's I think someone called you, who was it called, a deviant, one of the executives called you a deviant. Many years, I'm sure more than one probably did it. But that wasn't it, because as you said earlier, Scorsese can do what he did in Mean Streets, or Taxi Driver, and that's considered, you know, narrative revelation.
I had my tricks. I had my tricks. It's a good question. I had my tricks. What was important to me was, you know, the underlining discussions, including skin on racism in this country, and false revolutionaries and just the money. Each picture had part of my anger in it, but I knew that if I covered that with some tits and ass, with some outrageous stuff, that I could get away with what I was saying, because people would think that's what the new way of cartooning is. So that's why it's in the films. None of my pictures need that stuff to survive. What I'm saying is if you took the sex out of my films, it would still be my films. There would be much different, no difference. But the studio execs, different people would titter at it, and they think that's what I was doing. So I was able to hide the real porn stuff, which is what I was after. So I'm not stupid. I knew what I was. I manipulated them more than they manipulated me. They just had the last say. But I got my pictures done. So I knew what I was doing to keep them off guard. But they would stop me a long time ago. So, yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah.
If you had a chance to redo Cool World the way you wanted to, would you redo it?
Well, if I had a chance to redo the original script, of course I would. The original script I wrote for Paramount before Kim Basinger changed it. So she had a very big sway in the studio. Because I had this woman, the cartoon character, give birth to a live-action cartoon monster. It was a very horror film. It was a horror film, which, discussed the underground cartoonists. I would have preferred to make that film. I had hired different people. Gabriel Byrne's a good actor, I guess, but I never saw him as an American underground cartoonist. And all this happened. I had to take Basinger, who I did not like, and I had to take Gabriel Byrne, because I made the mistake at that point of taking Brad Pitt's first picture, and Paramount said, well, we need stars in this movie. You're going to fight for Brad, which I did. To me, it was another James Dean.
Yeah.
And it turned out that way. And I grew up with Dean and other guys. So they gave me Gabriel Byrne, who was a star, and the Basinger. I remember the scene with Basinger where I had this colleague come back to the real world in Texas, and it was a real low-down bar, dancing and singing on the stage and smoking everything. And she wanted to sing the Frank Sinatra Jr., Marilyn Monroe. And I thought, this would be out of your mind. These are the kind of fights I had on Cool World, but I didn't win any of those.
Did you want Jodie Foster in it?
I had Brad Pitt and not Jodie Foster. I had Brad Pitt, and at that point, Drew Barrymore. Drew Barrymore. With Brad Pitt and Drew Barrymore, I wanted to play, and I had this other guy from Video Tales and Lies to be the underground cartoonist. But I lost that one because I didn't have Bakshi production. I'd come back just to work as a director of Paramount, and I found out that before I never came back again to make a movie, I found out that once you work as a director for a major studio, you're not a director. They said no to what they want. They tell you if you don't want to do it. I should have quit, but I really wanted the money. At this point, I needed to support my family. I hadn't made a film for a long time, so. But I want to do it again, not with those people. No. With Brad.
Hang on a second, let's.
You had David Proval and Richard Romanus in Wizards as Weehawk and Peace. What made you bring them back in Hey Good Looking as Crazy Shapiro and Vinny?
You got it wrong. I did Hey Good Looking first. Hey Good Looking took 10 years to finish.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because I did a live action. Romanus and David Proval came right out of Mean Streets, which came out when I did Heavy Traffic, and I love that those guys came out perfect. I did a live action picture, all live action, except for 4 animated characters, which was, Rosie, Vinny, David, and someone else, Eva. And everything else was live action. So when Warner Brothers saw the picture, they said, no one's going to believe that. And they made me throw out the live action and reanimate it with my own money. Those were the kind of fights I had. They forced me in a lawsuit. So it took 10 years to finish, because every time I got paid for a movie, I would pay money out of my pocket to animate some more scenes, or they would sue me and lock me up forever and take away my kids. So I figured I should pay for this. Then I went on to do Wizards before the picture came out, so it was the other way around.
Oh, okay.
It was the other way around.
Thank you.
You gave a talk at Comic-Con a couple of years ago, which was basically advocating 4 guys get together, get some computers, lock yourselves in, and eat ramen for a year. Has your opinion since trying to get trying to get Coney Island up and running, has that changed any? And do you have any advice for someone who wants to do it?
Well, first of all, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I did it on Trickle Dickle. I'm starting to put a crew together. I have a very small crew, working directly for the internet. I'm going on Kickstarter, and I'm doing it. I've gotten DVDs and emails from hundreds of guys that are doing it. The biggest silent spring in the ecosystem today are guys making their own films because of that. And I'm very proud of that. And that's working. So as guys are making their own films, they're all going to be out. And I think the internet is going to start paying big money for these films. I think YouTube, Netflix, need these movies for advertising reasons. So I think that's happening big time. And I'm doing it now because I'm ready to do it. Because I've got the strength again because of you guys and the fact that people still buy me conventions. So I'm totally for that. I think if you hang in there and start a little more, there'll be an outlet, they'll pay you for this stuff. They cannot not. That's where everything we need, and the apps and the phones. Entertainment is tremendously needed on these net because what they need advertising dollars. The only way to do that is have a product. So I'm doing that now. I'm not going to Hollywood ever again. I'm going to put my stuff out a minute at a time if I have to. On the internet, I think it's trickle-dickle went viral worldwide. And it was sort of, I mean, how proud am I of that? And I said whatever I wanted to say, I don't have to answer or fight with anybody. Get some heated comments, but that's okay. So I'm saying I'm totally for that now, and I'm doing it now. I get many emails from guys that are around the world are doing this now. There are more films being made by 4 or 5 guys on computers than you ever imagine. And I think that's great.
I want to go back to, real quick, you talk about how you were invigorated by a crowd like this at Comic Cons that reminded you how much they loved World War. But it became very, very popular for filmmakers like Tarantino, for Spike Lee, for rappers, the Wu-Tang Clan, most notably, and the Wax Poetics crew, to begin to talk very openly about the influence of your work on them. At that point, I assume, because you really had not made films while these folks were talking about the influence. As you begin to realize that your work had profoundly touched so many who were profoundly popular, what did that do for you? Because I assume that that is a great deal of the reason why you're getting back. We're talking about Wizards 2, we're talking about...
Well, that lifted me up, made me feel that I didn't fail to the degree I thought I had. I was very proud of it. I realized I had done the right thing. I had doubted myself at times. My family took an awful beating with this. They're screaming and yelling and lawsuits. They're terrifying. You have no money. I was never rich. When companies, movie companies are threatening to sue you, that's pretty heavy stuff if you don't have money to pay a lawyer. So what I'm saying is that, yes, I feel great about these guys. I can't believe it. And of course it has a great reason for me coming back. Because I can tell my wife, she said it wasn't crazy. So she knows letting me come back. You see, she didn't let me stay. That's why she dragged me out of the business. She hates the business with a passion. She's a good girl. Her name is Lizzie. She's a good girl. But she didn't let me come back. I want to come back wasn't for her.
Yeah.
She's tough.
You've done a fair amount of live action directing as well, and I was just wondering if you had any desire to maybe give that another go.
No, not at all. That's all ego. Animation is the greatest medium in the world. Pixar and DreamWorks are doing brilliant looking stuff.
Yeah.
But the same old stuff. Animation is a way to do great stuff in films. So live action is boring. This is boring. Except for the new James Bond over here is unbelievable.
That's weird. That's the one you would single out as the live action film of the new James Bond.
Well, I love James Bond. I saw the first one, but I like this new Bond. And they say it's the best Bond ever made. That gets me excited. I've seen some good ones. But the reviews are the best Bond ever made. And that poor scene.
Daniel Craig.
Yeah, he's good. I like him.
He's sharp.
Real quick, I was also just wondering if
He watches that Japanese animation.
Big
there was any
fan.
chance that This Ain't Bebop would get any sort of release, or if I'd have any way to see it ever.
I enjoy making This Ain't Bebop because it wasn't a live action picture. It was a poem that I shot. Last Days of Coney Island are very similar in tone and texture to This Ain't Bebop. It's a vicious cop story. It has the same feelings about the period. So I would have loved to have made a feature film on This Ain't Bebop. There's a lot more to be told. But if I make Last Days of Coney Island, I would have done it anyhow. You're very wise for putting that together. This Last Days of Coney Island is a further extension of This Ain't Bebop. So what's your name?
Chris.
Nice going, Chris. You nailed it.
Thank you.
lot to follow up, sir. A lot of pressure.
Thanks for coming out. My question really is about when any article I find on you is all about controversy and conflict, but can you talk about the times when everything worked and was your best times in animation and film?
Well, that's a fair question. When I saw Heavy Traffic the first time, when I saw Fritz, it was okay. I enjoyed it. When I saw Heavy Traffic, I nearly cried because it was everything I thought it could be and everything I thought that animation could never be. And I had realized I had done it. I mean, I started without the music. You talk about a heavy film, you know, somber. So when I saw Heavy Traffic, it was the best day of my life. I knew that I had succeeded in pushing animation way past Fritz, which was, you know, cats and dogs and animals. When I saw Wizard, I was very proud of it. So there were moments when I finally got, when I saw Coonskin, I was in heaven. So I was only happy when I saw the film for the first time and realized that the fight was worth it at that moment. Then the fight started again. Making the films without money is very difficult. Any filmmaker in the audience will tell you that making films so cheap is very difficult. So it wasn't the day that was easy physically. You get stuff done right. But there were moments of great joy when I saw that the experiment had worked. They all were experiments. I saw that it worked. And I didn't know. I mean, this is a very simple question. Like, you're doing First the Cat, or you're doing Heavy Traffic. Well, how far do you go? What do you show? What is nude? Like when Duke falls out of the car, he was a crow, he could fly away with Fritz. But you can't do that if you look at realism. So you can't lean on animation cliches, and you're not quite clear what the right thing is. What is sex? How much sex? What is crazy? How much crazy? You know, I did things in traffic, and I looked at it, I said, I don't believe I'll let myself do that. You know, Andrew, we pulled into the truck. I mean, my God. But what I'm saying is, there was nothing for me to look at that would know how far to go, or whether it would work. You know, it's hard to understand. Again, before humans were Jewish in animation and Italian, and I was trying to, you know, shove Angie in the fireplace because Catholics don't get divorced. Those things never happened before in animation. You weren't sure what it all meant. Would people in the audiences believe this cartoon character was Jewish? Would he believe this guy was Italian? Those are major questions. As a director, I was asking myself. So I'm saying, when I saw it, saw that it worked, I was deliriously happy. Now it seems quite obvious, but it wasn't then at all. It was a blank slate. I knew that Bambi would work. I didn't know if I Wish Upon a Star would work. I didn't know that this would work. You know.
What about your interaction with fans? Have you gotten anything just really positive that you can share with us in terms of people actually understanding what you were trying to say in your films?
Oh, like you mean, they're all fans. They come by, all the guys are fans. You all come by the desk. I love fans. Fans have picked me up and set me straight. You know, I love fans. I went to the first comic convention in New York City. The guys sat around in a room, maybe a little bigger than this. Sat they open. They all had boxes of comic strip, cardboard boxes, and we sat around the wall trading and this and that. You know, what's happened to comic conventions is that the fans are the greatest. I'm a cartoonist. I'm an animator. I'm a fan. You know, I love cartoons. I love Rosetta. I love Joe Cupid. You know, I'm nothing more than a cartoonist. You know, so you guys, we all love the same stuff. We're all in this together. So I always feel that that's why I come to these things. You know, I mean, so if that's your question, that's my answer. I feel very grateful to have so many friends. You know?
Thanks.
We have time for one more question. Oh.
Make it good.
Oh, well, for someone that's going to release their first animation, how important is it to be a member of the Screenwriters Guild of America or the Artists Guild? Can you do it on your own, or do you really need to have that affiliation?
That affiliation will kill you.
That's what I thought.
Oh, yeah. They'll tell you what to write, what you could write, and they start putting rules and regulations on what you're doing and how many rewrites. It's unbelievable. You know, if you could write a script and they bring another writer and you have no say to stop them, Screen Actors Guild, studios can do whatever they want. That affiliation isn't as great as it's good. It's only good if you are writing for studios and need support from a union to help you get a fair deal. Then it's okay. But if you're doing your own stuff, they're not gonna help you at all. In fact, they don't like you. You're dangerous. You're a loose cannon. Everyone in Hollywood fights for the system to remain the system. It produces a lot of money for a lot of people. So they don't particularly care for statements like, oh, make it on your own. You know, stuff like that. So I don't see it helping you unless you're working for a major studio. Then I, of course, would join, but then they would support you. If you're making what you want to make, just keep doing it.
So starting your own studio would be a good thing?
Absolutely. The computer is amazing. You know, what is done on the computer today, I did some film in my library, in my home, that used to take 100-man studio to do, old school. The shooting, the 35mm film, the pencil test, going to the laboratory, coming back, special effect, you push a button, you get rain. It used to take me 7 weeks to get one scene of rain done. But I'm serious, that's old school. What you could, I have done heavy traffic today, $8,000. You buy a same film. I'm manning live action today on the computer, no problem. It used to cost me, something like $5,000 to $3,000 a shot from an optical house in the old days to put a live action background behind animation. $3,000, $5,000 a shot. How many shots you got in the picture?
72 per minute.
So what I'm saying is, you push a button on the computer and there it is. Like you rip the live action right off the computer. You put it on Netflix, you take whatever you want. I mean, it's nuts. Colored lines. Anyone that doesn't do it doesn't try to do it. I think it should be done. I really do. It's not easy. Nothing is easy. But go work for Pixar if you want something hard. You want to sit there, you know. A lot of people I train work for Pixar. I have animators in town getting facelifts and they're dyeing their hairs. That's what's happening to animators. They're all making a lot of money at Pixar and they think they deserve this stuff. It's not with animation, but they'll do anything they can to continue that cash flow, which is, you know, Shrek 3, or Cars 4. I mean, it's crazy. It's nuts. I mean, you know, Cars 4, who needs them? So what I'm saying is, it depends who you are as a person. If you want to go make a lot of money and raise a family, that's fine too. Let me clear that up. I'm not putting down anyone that wants to go and work for Pixar. Make a lot of money if they could, buy a nice house and live like a person. There's nothing wrong with that either. It depends what you want. You know, so I want to be very clear on that. I'm not going to say anyone. There's a life there too. A life of no anguish. You know, a life of, you know, buy the best car you want. That's a life. It depends what you want. So I'm not putting that down. Decide what you want and go after it. If you want to do your own thing, which I prefer, because you can say things they don't let you say it. And that's important.
Thank you for the encouragement. I really appreciate it.
Well, show me some stuff. I have a website. Send me some.
I started up.
Anyone can send me stuff. I'm looking for animators, by the way.
Okay.
No, I'm looking for animators. Anyone that wants to send me a reel or a series. I'm getting ready to go. Wizards is going to go. This guy's got too much clout not to sell something, I think. And we're going to get the funding for last day, so I'm going to be looking for animators. We're all sitting at home, but no one's. I'm going to be in New Mexico. Everything's been sent in, sent out. You know, this is a new way of doing it. Anybody out there wants to animate a design character, please find me. Send me stuff, I'm serious.
I cannot think of a better way to end that by asking the audience to send him stuff. I think that may be the greatest way any panel has ever ended.
I love this guy.
But I love you. And I have to tell you, when they asked me to do this, I said, you've got to be kidding. It has been a thrill. It has been an honor.
I love this a lot. This is the best guy. This guy knows what came down. He really knows this stuff.
Well, I love this man. So please, I know we all do as well. Please thank him.